Hello, everyone, and welcome to Writer's Workshop, a writing book club. My name is Tamara Woods. This is my channel where I talk about books and writing. And today is the last episode for 2021. I can't believe we're here. Tomorrow's Halloween. Shits is weird. But we have a special guest today, and I would like for everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Sarah, our special guest, and then we'll get on with talking about the stuffs.
All right. Hello, I am Sarah Scharnweber. I guess I'm a special guest because I'm not usually here, but that's because I read really slow. But I'm a horror author, and yeah, and I have YouTube and Twitch and all those things. So those are all the things I do. Sky.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sky. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name SD Hegyes. And this is actually the first one I've come to this year because I haven't finished the books. So I feel like a slacker.
Well, you hadn't finished the books. For a long time, you didn't have the internet. There was a lot going on. You've been in transition, but you're here now, and I appreciate you because if y'all weren't here, I would be talking to myself about this book, and that would be awkward.
That would be awkward.
Because I am not good at that. All right, let's see who else here. Y'all pulling double duty. Hello, CJ, one of our lovely panelists who wasn't able to be on screen, but she is here to support. Spence, hello, Dumpling. Cynthia, hello. So, if you all are unaware of the book that we're going to be talking about, let me share the screen real quick so that you can see that this is the one, Writing in the Dark by Tim Wagner. As you can see, it had 128 ratings and a 5-star. A lot of people gave a lot of good feedback on this one, so that's why we decided to give it a go. And yes, Sarah is our resident horror author in our little crew, so that's what made you the special guest. Also, you would come. You said yes.
I did say yes. I did.
You did.
I did.
So, what we've been doing, if you are new here or you're unaware, for the past 4 or 5 months, we've been exploring genres as opposed to just getting general advice. I was interested, and I think my panelists were too, in seeing what we could gain and what we could glean from other advice from other genres. So Tim Wagner, he has published over 50 horror related works in his lifetime. So I would say that he's pretty established. He amused me greatly. There was one quote, I'm going to find it while we're talking, that made me like, I cackled. So what were y'all's impressions of it? Did you enjoy your reading?
I enjoyed it. I will say I've read massive amounts of writing books directly aimed at horror authors. So I don't know that most of the information was necessarily brand new, but I don't also think that I've seen the combination of information in one place. So I do feel like it's like it did have lots of stuff in it despite that. But there are things about writing books to me that, like, just seeing an analytical view of how things go together kind of makes my brain feel different, if that makes sense. So it kind of does something to my ability to take something from it. So for anything that is repeated, that's it still does something for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that when it comes to writing advice in general, it's really hard for people at this point to come up with things that are just entirely new, you know?
Right.
But sometimes it's like the person's perspective or their voice or just their thought process or even how they arrange the material. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's a way of thinking about this that I haven't hit on before. Cool.
Yeah. And I think for me, as someone who like horror is my least favorite genre of all genres. But it was really interesting to see like the breakdown of what actually qualifies as horror. Because it turns out a lot of what I don't qualify as horror is actually horror. And I'm just like, oh, well, I guess
Yeah.
I am a horror fan after all. I just don't like this particular subgenre of it.
Right.
I think that was surprising to me too, because when it was like, okay, break down a genre, I was like, all right. And then I'm like, wait a second, this is like, there's like 20 things here. I did not realize all of this existed.
I was wondering if you guys were going to get that from it. Because for me, like, I'm familiar with all of that because I do write in that world and I do read in that world. But when I was reading it, I was like, I wonder if people really do realize the layers here. And so I was like, I wonder if everybody's going to have already kind of put this together before they read this. So I did appreciate those breakdowns too. Sometimes it's nice to see it written out. It's that analytical thing again, that whole like, well, in this area you see X, Y, Z, but Z can also be in this area and X can also be in that area over there. And like being able to like see it spelled out like that was, yeah, I felt like that was really helpful.
Where would you classify your horror? Is that uncomfortable?
No, but I need to look at the list because it's not the kind of thing that I just keep in my brain meets.
Okay. Well, while you're looking, this line, all stories are about people in pain, people who are suffering, and what they do to alleviate that suffering. And I was like, that is such an emo horror writer thing to say. Like,
Right?
all writing is pain. It cracked me up.
Oh man.
I think I tend to float in the supernatural, psychological, realistic realm.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally I will touch on body horror, but to be real, it makes me want to die. So I don't like doing it.
I appreciate that.
Sometimes it's not my fault, but I'm just like, I hate it.
Yeah, it's gross.
I
was thinking of realistic and psychological with your writing. So I'm glad that I was right.
Yeah, I do have some paranormal, and then, I have the accidental fantasy, which I'm sure is dark fantasy technically, which falls under both blah, 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 but whatever,
Yeah.
Here's the thing is that because I enjoy things in that realm, I just tend to be there. You know what I mean? So it's like, there are things that people classify as like scary that to me, it doesn't even occur to me that it might not be a thing that I'm doing. So I think that like I'm kind of dulled.
No, you've been a horror fan your like essentially your entire life. So that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. One thing that was mentioned, why did I highlight this? Oh, okay. The book that was the most effect on me was John A. Keel's The Mothman Prophecies, especially the last line, a quote attributed to Charles Fort: "If there is a universal mind, must it be sane?" The idea haunted me and has formed the basis of much of my horror fiction throughout my life. Do y'all have a book or a movie or a song, some piece of media that has affected your writing like that? Because I was thinking about that. I was thinking over that, the whole idea of something that has influenced me so much that I've carried it with me through decades. And I don't know if I have that kind of touchstone. And folks in the comments, please let us know.
I honestly missed part of that because I was reading comments.
Just essentially, he was saying that this book, The Mothman Prophecies, like super influenced him, like through everything that he's written. So I was wondering, do you guys have something, like whether it's a book or a movie or music? anything that has been that kind of touchstone for you?
I mean, I think everything grunge in the 90s and David Lynch, maybe.
I can see David Lynch being very
Maybe
influential
some.
in some Weird Al. Sky, what about you?
Probably, but none that I can think of off the top of my head. Of course, as soon as you asked that question, I was just like,
I don't remember liking anything ever.
Right?
Yeah. Not anything that's actually like had such a profound effect on my writing the way he says Mothman Prophecies did his. Like, because I take inspiration from a little bit of everything I watch and everything I read. Like, that's just what I do, and I take tidbits here and there, but not anything that comes to mind that has such an effect on me that I remember it word for word, almost. Yeah.
Well, and then there's also in It by Stephen King, Ben Hanscom thinks that fat boys are only allowed to love pretty girls inside. That's like my favorite line ever written of anything ever. It's the saddest thing I've ever read. So that has stuck with me. And I read that when I was 11 for the first time. So yeah.
Amber says Dark Sarah has songs that have heavily influenced the way I describe my writing my characters.
I like Dark Sarah.
Chopin Nocturne in E minor, OP 72. It was used as the main theme in one of my favorite adaptations and one of my favorite stories. Oh, I love it. Those are two of our normal panelists who weren't able to be on screen, but they're in the comments, and I love it. Hello, Jacob. I see you. Let's see what. I see. RC Scott asked, "What's the scariest book you've all read?" I've only DNF'd one book that was horror, and that was The Dark Half by Stephen King. The entire concept horrified me so much that I couldn't finish it.
That's fair.
It was too much. My brain fizzled.
That's fair. It is emotionally disgusting.
Yeah. I was like, I can't. Oh.
I didn't DNF it, but I was like 13, 14 when I read what I consider my first horror book. And it was probably why I don't like horror these days. And it was The Fun House by Dean Koontz. It screwed me up. Like, nope, can't do it.
I remember crying reading it, and my mom was like, why don't you just stop reading it? And I was like, I have to know how it ends, or it'll haunt me forever.
Right, that's the thing, is like once you get into something that's that heavy, you might have to finish it to know that there's some sort of end.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to sit there in the back of your mind going, hey, remember, you don't have any idea how I ended.
Yeah.
It could be real bad.
Yeah. Monster's going to come get you in the middle of the night.
I mean, you never know. You never know. But let's see. So one thing that he talked about that I thought that was interesting, and I think that it's something that writers, no matter what genre you write, toil with, is how do you learn the conventions of the genre you're working in while at the same time striving for originality? And I think that is a question that comes up all the time. Like, for instance, in the romance genre, it's the convention is to have an ending that has a happily ever after or a happily for now. And there is always a debate that sparks up about whether or not you need to do it or you need not to do it. And it's like this huge emotional thing. So I'm interested in knowing from y'all and from, of course, everyone who's in the comments, how do you deal with hitting those conventions, those things that are like a must for your genre, and not being a cliche, not making it suck? How do you make it new?
Ugh.
I mean, I think some of what works for me is that I have a aggressive hold on things that I am into. So like it's really hard for me to not know that I'm redoing something, because things that stick in my brain just stick. They're just stuck there.
Mhm.
So it kind of it'll flag it basically.
Right.
It's just the way the filing system in my brain works that way. I don't.
That makes sense. So you like self-monitor.
Yeah,
essentially.
can't tell you what I wrote, but everything else I know damn well.
Fair. I won't ask you to quote yourself or anything.
No,
That's
no.
madness. I can't do that either. With me, to be fair, I'm still learning the conventions of erotica. So I think that I'm not writing cliches, but I could be wrong. And I'm just being honest. With Cozy Mysteries, I try to keep like the basic covenants of you have a female protagonist who is not a professional in like some sort of law enforcement, who is kind of a nosy Betty and gets involved in stuff that she really shouldn't be involved in. I try to keep that in mind, but I try to come up with scenarios and deaths essentially that are different than what I've read before and that are interesting to me. So poisons that aren't used as often. Murder to spare, the murder took place in a bowling alley. Like, murder can happen anywhere, you guys.
Right?
It doesn't have to be just someone shooting you. Like, get creative.
Don't limit your horror or your murder.
Yeah. And murder can absolutely take place as horror. We're not going too far off the beaten path here. Have people in the comments said the things?
A little bit. I think in my case, it's because of what's popular and the most tropey in my genre is the stuff that I cannot stand. So like what's big right now is like love triangles and alpha holes or alpha a-holes, for those who don't know. And like abuse is really popular right now. Bully romance is really popular right now, and I can't stand any of that. So I try to do the opposite. I want good, loving partners for my characters, please. Thank you.
And in popular culture, it's like, no, we want to be ruined.
Oh my god.
I want to be emotionally fractured when you're done with me. Put me back together with your love. So Amber says, I think that's why I added my gods to the paranormal. I wanted that different spin to the normal tropes in the genre. Dig it.
Okay.
RC says, I can speak on this. Writing horror is difficult when you're trying to be original. The 80s nuked it for everyone. The 80s. Spence says, I think trying to make it new is a doomed way of looking at it. I like to think in terms of how do I play with it? How do I make it fun? We only get mad at cliches when they're not fun, really.
He touched on that a lot, actually, and the putting spins on things, especially like when he was talking about monsters and like how vampires are considered cliches now because they've been in culture so much and so often, even in like cereal brands, there's Count Chocula. It's not scary anymore. And so like reinventing things so that they are scary is important in horror. So I thought that was pretty interesting to read too.
Yeah. Having the body get squeezed out of the bowling ball return like a grisly toothpaste tube. I'm on board with that. Cozy?
I think he's talking horror.
This feels very horror. Not quite the case. That's not what happens. Let's see. My stories are raw. I don't pay attention to culture, probably why I'm not published. Mm, I wouldn't say that. But I think that it's important to kind of know in general what's happening and the stories that are around you just to if you are trying to work on getting published and just knowing what other people are doing. If you're planning on self-publishing, that's important to a certain extent, but I think that it's really important when you're trying to figure out if agents are going to pick you up. I would love a triangle. I would love a love triangle. Okay, I've said that right. Where the two love interns are trying to tell the MC that they have been dating for a for 8 months.
I'm here for the polyamorous relationship. I'm here for it.
I think that those are becoming more popular.
A little bit, especially with like the reverse harem stuff and the harem stuff.
Vampires can still be used. Look at the book. Let the right one in. Oh,
Yes.
people still love
Oh, yeah.
vampires. And especially if they're used in an interesting way, you know? Or Nosferatu, though I unwillingly DNF'd that one.
I do want to read that one, actually.
Unwillingly? I didn't read it, but I watched the first season of the show and I really liked it. So you are planning on self-publishing. When horror publishers complain about violence, I swear it's not me.
That was an interesting comment that he made too.
Yeah.
Was about at the very beginning was when he was talking about the fact that someone asked why he writes horror and what did he say exactly? I don't remember, but basically it came down to the fact that he used it as kind of a release so that he would stay sane, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
he did talk also
thought that was
about
interesting.
the idea of super violence and how having super violent horror is not a problem if you took the violence out, there would still be a tangible story. So like not just having it be a sequence of violent actions that have no actual like story to it. And that would be the difference between that being working and not working.
Right. Fear of the unknown is at the core of all good horror fiction. I thought that was it. I thought that was interesting. Do you find, of course, commenters, please comment. Do you find that you work your fears into your writing? Regardless of your genre, I'm very interested to know.
I mean, I'm afraid of everything, so yes.
That made me think of I'm afraid of Americans.
I am also afraid of Americans.
I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it.
Yeah. I probably would be mildly frightened if Trent Reznor showed up, and very frightened if David Bowie did.
I mean, I'd be freaked out if David Bowie showed up. If Trent Reznor did, I'm ending this stream and I have things to do.
Oh, Lord.
Sorry about this, family, but
Well,
but yes, fears in your writing.
I think yes is the short answer. The longer answer is my two biggest fears. I have not yet because I am not ready to face those fears yet and put it in my writing. But as far as like the smaller fears go, yes, definitely I have. Like,
I think I have as well. I think that part of writing is a chance to kind of untangle things like thoughts and feelings and emotions and maybe things that I wouldn't necessarily give a lot of thought to or that I would push away. And I've done a lot of horror writing in general before publishing. So I explored a lot of themes of like domestic violence and child abuse and things that kind of haunted me so that I could work through it. Let's see what you guys have said. Ooh, you're starting a ghost story this weekend.
Which hotel is it, RC?
A 94-year hotel here in Chicago on Halloween with a bottle of absinthe. That.
I live very near you. I live up in Rockford, so I'm like 90 minutes away from you. And occasionally I go to a hotel because I like spooky places. So, Hotel Versi Inn. Okay, I will note that one. I might need to go spooky. I like spooky things.
I feel like there's a writing retreat coming up for Sarah real soon that deals with the Hotel Versi.
My husband took me to, I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it's like the Continental or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't remember the name of it. But I was so excited because it's supposed to be haunted, and I don't believe in ghosts, but I think it's fun. And the only thing that scared me at all was that he opened a bottle of champagne and almost killed us with it because it bounced all over the room.
Oh no!
So that was all the scary I got out of it. Unfortunately,
that is pretty scary though. Your life flashed before your eyes.
Yes. I still remember it, and it was before we were married, so it's 12 years ago now. So it was that scary.
Tamika, hello. You said, I am used to lit fiction, so I'm not too familiar with tropes and such. Now I do research to find out what readers expect because I did not do that with previous manuscripts. Scroll down to the bottom. What? Apparently the rumor is Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love got it on for the first time here.
Oh.
It's a famous stop for musicians on tour.
It keeps coming back to that damn grunge music, man.
It's my personal fave because I am old. So this line, I'm just going to read it because when I read it, I immediately thought of you, Sarah. Modern readers in general are probably more likely to suspend their disbelief for a science-based monster, though because science exists and the supernatural does not. No offense to those of you who believe in the supernatural, but I don't, and it's my book. If Sarah was ever to write a book on writing, it would have that amount of sass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I howled.
Oh, sorry. I drank too much water. My stomach goes mad for a second.
I zoned out for a minute. So are we saying Courtney Love is probably responsible for all the hauntings? That kind of tracks.
If I thought I might bump into Courtney Love, I would probably hole myself up in a hotel somewhere. So.
I mean, she's wow.
She's a piece of work.
It's legendary that she has survived.
Yes, that's true.
Let's see. In order to write effective and original horror, you need to dig into your own psyche and find out what scares you, what disturbs you, what hurts you. It's what Jack Cutchin used to refer to as writing from the wound. I hadn't heard that phrase before, writing from the wound, but I thought that was one to be noted.
Yeah, and I think that's true in a lot of areas. Like, it doesn't have to be horror for that to be true.
Yeah, I agree. It could be, pain from a lost love or lost loved one.
Yeah.
Because writing is pain.
But I do think that can for some writers be the best way to engage someone emotionally is to have dug in emotionally yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. Definitely. I think that when you do come from a place of authenticity, even if the reader doesn't know it directly, it makes the story richer. In my opinion, I could be wrong. I'm only the queen of the stream, not of the world. Yet. So he told the story of how he had written a story, right? And he gave the story to a friend, and the friend was like, here's the two things that are wrong with the story, major issues with the story, says the friend. So he goes back and he changes the thing. And then he kind of continues to write based just on how other people perceive what he should be writing. And it wasn't until he actually started to process what he liked to write and just let that flow, that's when he started to see actual success. So I thought that was interesting in terms of A, looking for writing advice that actually works for you, and B, knowing when the advice that you are being given, whether it's from well-being, well-meaning other writers or whoever, knowing when what they're saying doesn't really apply for you or doesn't work for you. How do you figure that out? How do you sort through all the noise? I know these are hard questions, and there's no right or wrong answers.
I like the advice where if you're that I've now heard a couple of times now that if you're hearing the same things from multiple people, then you need to fix it. But if it's just like one or two people, you're probably fine.
Yeah, I also think it depends on like if you have somebody who can explain what the problem is, I think it can help you to figure out whether or not it's actually based in anything you need to address.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes they'll explain to you that the problem is that they don't have a knowledge base of this thing. Like, for instance, you're talking about guns and they're like, I have no knowledge base for guns. This all sounds fake. Well, if they only put this all sounds fake, you don't know what that comment is doing for you.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they say, I have no knowledge base for guns first, now you know this person is never going to understand this. So, you know, that does help if you can try to get people to communicate more clearly. And I think over time you can build up a group of people who can communicate those things more clearly to you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I've been trying to figure out for myself where I draw the line with the advice that I'm given and what I'm taking in and what I'm leaving to the side. And one way that we, as writers, if we are lucky enough, we get reviews from our readers. And I have found just personally that if I'm given a 3-star review, I'm more likely to read the 3-star review than the 5 or the 1. Like the 5 maybe on days where like, you know, I'm feeling kind of down and I just want to remind myself that I don't suck as much as I feel like I do. And maybe I'm not a super imposter.
Right?
But like it feels to me, it's like the 3-star review, I know that there are authors who hate 3-star reviews. I don't understand them. Like, or the 4 stars, like, why are you so mad? I don't know. But to me, the 3-star is the person likes me, likes what I did, but there were some problems. And so if they're giving me constructive criticism, then I'm more likely to act on it. Whereas if someone is giving the 5-star, they generally don't have as much to say that's constructive. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about reviews? Here's another thing. Someone told me that they don't read their reviews at all. They have their husband read them. And then if there's something that they should know about, then their husband like lets them know. Which, I mean, that's okay.
I mean, like whatever works.
I was like, it sounds like y'all have a system.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't worry that much about reviews, to be real. I think that it's naive to not understand that when you put out a book for consumption, especially if you're charging people money for said book, they then have every right in the universe to give you a review, even if that review is it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's an unfortunate state of things, but you don't actually have to give them permission for that, despite what some people might believe. And that's really my whole thoughts on it.
I'm a mix of all of this that's been said so far. I do enjoy 3 stars the most, and coming from as a reviewer myself, like that's actually what I give the most is 3 stars. Like that's where I start when I start reading a book. It starts from 3 stars and either goes up or down from there. So I agree that that's where most of your ability to improve your writing in future stories comes from.
Yeah.
Whereas like the 5 stars feels like someone is possibly kissing your butt, and the 1 star feels like that they might have possibly bought it and said this isn't the kind of book for me, and just 1 starred it just out of spite.
Right.
Yeah. That seems to be where you find the ones that are like, yeah, so I went into this thinking it was going to be a romance. And you're like, but dude, it says it's a horror story, right? Like the first line.
Right.
It's like, okay. And there's really nothing that you could do for that.
No. And that, like, that's just a thing you're going to get. But if you do get someone who says that, you might want to double check and make sure like your cover doesn't look like a romance cover or something like that is actually causing that problem, because that's possible.
Yeah. And then that becomes valid criticism that you can like use to improve your product.
Right.
It's nice having that kind of flexibility and freedom as indies, because then we can change things on a dime, even though it costs way more than a dime. That's another conversation.
Right.
For another dime. So one quote that I liked, monsters don't have to be creatures. Yes. They're the embodiment of distortion, of veering away from the normal. Monsters don't even have to be embodied in physical form. And I thought that was a really interesting point. Because for me, like, you know, this huge, spooky, scary monster that comes out of the lake. Yeah, scary. But the real monster for me is the guy that lives next door. Mm-hmm. And he's unassuming, and then he does the crazy, scary thing, you know?
Yeah.
What do y'all think about monsters and how they could be portrayed?
I love me a good monster. That's actually now that I know that my range of horror was much smaller than I thought, and I have broadened it, and I do actually enjoy horror. Monster stuff is my jam. Like anything dealing with monsters is amazing, and the stuff that scares me is like people as monsters. I'm not down with that. I can't watch Saw. I can't watch Saw at all.
Yeah, I mean that a large part of that is the gore.
Yes.
I think I actually watch a YouTube channel. His name's CZ's World, and he does like breakdown, like horror histories of things. And one of the things he'll do is do like a breakdown of the storyline of a horror series, and that's the only way I can tolerate Saw. Like after Saw 2, I just started being annoyed that it's just torture porn. But I watched his thing, and getting to know that actual storyline is really, really neat. And because it's on YouTube, he couldn't have most of that stuff in there. So it's really cool to be able to hear the history of it and the background and all of the lore, and not have to deal with the extreme ridiculousness. So that's a thing.
Do you have a favorite monster?
I don't think so. Probably not. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, it would jump around depending on what exactly I'm into at the moment, because I kind of flow in and out of what I'm actively like engaged in. So it probably would go from like Twin Peaks characters I can't name because they would be spoilers just by naming them. And maybe probably Pennywise, and maybe the Crimson King from the Dark Tower series. Yeah, so I mean, just it kind of depends on what I'm actively into right now. Some days it might be like somebody in The Sopranos. It just kind of depends.
Man, I really want to reread the Dark Tower series now.
You should do
Oh,
it.
man.
I highly recommend it at all times.
So good. I'm going nuclear. Want to ruin your week? Watch the French horror film Martyrs.
Yeah.
Santa Claus with red eyes.
I don't fuck with Santa Claus. Negative. I don't trust that guy at all.
It would help writers to read reviews. I can understand not continuously reading them, especially self-pub author, to learn what you do well, what needs work. A lot of one-star reviews get stuck onto anything with LGBT plus POC characters. So many people just out to trash minorities out of spite. I think humans are the most terrifying monsters, especially the ones who appear innocuous. I agree.
I watched a video on YouTube. It was talking about, and I don't classify this book or the movie as horror necessarily, but it does have horror elements, and that's The Lovely Bones. But the whole concept of the YouTube video was analyzing why it creeps people out, and they can't really explain why it creeps them out. It just gives you a whole bad feeling. And the innocuous human is exactly it. The neighbor next door that you don't think is a pedophile and a murderer, that actually is. Like, he seems normal, he's friendly, he's kind, he's gives to the community kind of thing. So yes, the humans as monster is terrifying, in my opinion.
Do you remember, or did you watch Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo?
I did not watch it.
It was incredible. And I think that was the only time that I've watched that man in a work where I was like, oh my God, I can't handle you. I can't deal with you. Like, it was so well done. And it was definitely that innocuous, quiet character. So good. Misty K says pretty much every monster from Del Toro's work and Mothman. I would like to let y'all know that I'm from West Virginia, and so is Mothman. just wanted to put that out there.
I absolutely have never asked you how far you are from where the Mothman is. That's never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Oh my goodness.
Lord.
I'm enjoying this conversation. I hope that you guys are too, and that y'all in the comments are as well. Keep your comments coming. You're making this conversation so much more interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with the innocuous human. I think it's because of the serial killer profile, how they live next door and they fool everyone, right?
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite tropes, and this is in almost any genre, is where the person who looks like a monster is like one of the kindest people you'll ever know.
Yeah.
And the one who is normal and accepted by society is the one who's a flippin' monster.
Oddly enough, I feel like that just works out.
Right.
Like, that just seems to play out in my reality anyway.
Yeah, it's just how it washes out.
There was one chapter that I found that was really interesting. He was talking about how someone had read one of his books and had written a letter of concern and sent it to like the police department because she felt like he was really someone who could honestly be dangerous, and that his books were more of like this like either him talking about things that he was planning on doing or had done, and she wanted the police department to basically do a background check on him to, see if this guy was a danger to society. So it went from the police department to like the head of his department. I think he was teaching creative writing at a university or college at the time, to his desk. And he wasn't offended. In fact, he was like, I wish things then were as they were now, because it would have been picked up by newspapers and then it'd been like all this free press. I was like, damn, that's mercenary. But in this chapter, he was discussing how to kind of wield the power of horror and this power to frighten people and to scare people, and recognizing what you're doing and what you could be doing to people psychologically who consume your content, right? And the last line before the exercises was, bottom line, respect the knife and the eventual wielder of it, but always make the sharpest goddamn blade you can. So I thought that was interesting because he went through the motions of talking about, should you hold back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a responsibility in your writing to kind of shield your reader? And I feel like after I was finished reading it, I felt like, okay, I have a responsibility to make sure that everything that I'm putting into this story is actually necessary, and that I'm not just being gratuitous with whatever, whether it be the sex acts or the violence or the whatever, that it's necessary, that it's like an important part of it, that I'm not just adding filler.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think of that? Give me some thoughts, give me some comments, especially y'all in the comments, because you're amazing.
Sort of unrelated, you mentioned that he was at the university at the time, and it was earlier in the conversation comments, Cynthia Carver mentioned that Wagner is a professor of writing at their community college. I thought that was interesting.
That's so cool. Have you taken any courses, or do you want to? Have you read his work? Tell us more, Cynthia. Because I'm nosy.
But I think it depends a lot on the genre you're writing in, because with adult fiction, you definitely can get into the more detailed of various things. But if you're writing like cozy, you can't go into detail in your murder. It ruins the whole genre. Like, that's the whole point. It's meant to be feel good, not descriptive in the murder itself.
Yeah.
And same thing with like YA. YA is a very bad example, because that line seems to be drifting more towards adult fiction these days, but that's beside the point. Most of the time, or at least the traditional YA that is not modern day YA, used to be, you didn't go into a lot of detail about various things.
Great.
So I think a lot of it depends on the genre you're writing it, but with horror, definitely. That being said, he talked about using it in not spurts, but like being selective about where you do it, because some things are going to matter and some things are not. And the way it's described is going to matter too. Like the perspective, whether we're seeing into the character's past versus what's actually happening to them in the moment, kind of thing. And I gotta look for it, because he gave an example of like 2 different scenes where he described a bunch of backstory of the past of the character, and then he described what was actually happening. And it was the same thing happening. It was just described in such a way that it felt like 2 different scenes completely, and it was the same exact scene, which I thought was interesting. Now, of course, I can't find it.
Yeah, I keep flipping for things and I can't find any of them. Every time I flip, I'm like, nope, that's not what I was fucking looking for.
I bookmarked things, but I bookmarked all the wrong things.
Or I bookmarked so many things I can't find the ones I did. Like, I underlined a lot of shit, but where's the thing I'm looking for? Nowhere.
That's the beauty of the Kindle, because I highlighted things in different colors.
See, that would be super
That's
useful,
smart.
but it has to turn on for that to work. So that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's my my Kindle stopped doing.
Well, your Kindle is a jerk, and I hope that it gets its act together.
No, it won't. It's been like 1.5 years now, and I've tried like 4 different things.
Damn.
I found it. Okay, so what he was talking about was like, he was describing like the 5 types of colors of horror, and he talked about dread, terror, horror, shock, and disgust being the colors of horror. And when he got to disgust, it was the 2 descriptions that he did that were sample passages of the types of writing, and it was literally the same scene, but in one he was describing like the character's mouth and various things that the mouth did over the years being hit by a sledgehammer. And then the second scene was the description of all the things that were actually happening as the mouth was being hit by the sledgehammer. So the passages are long, and I don't want to read them word for word, plus they're a little graphic. But I thought it was interesting how you could take the same exact scene and turn it on its head and make it completely different.
That would be a fun writing exercise to see how all of us would like take on a certain scene.
Yeah.
If we were writing it in our different genres, that would be interesting.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, that could be fun.
That would be fun. R.C. Scott says, vulgarity helps with writing horror. Do you indulge in vulgarity in your horror, Sarah?
Yes.
I don't know why I said it that way.
I don't know. But every day of my life, that's just who I am.
So that's not really going for the genre norm there.
No, it's just I don't know. That's why I don't write for children. And I've always said that people are like, you should write like some young adult, and I'm like, I can't stop myself from saying the F-bomb, and I'm doing it here because Tamara has a YouTube channel, and I'm trying to be good, but
Thank you.
I'm not good at it. You guys, if I mess up, I mess up.
You're doing great.
Jace pointed out, like, so I was talking about YA, but R.L. Stine does it with the middle grade actually perfectly, with his Goosebumps on one hand and with the Fear Street on the other. Like, those could be terrifying in their own ways. Goosebumps for me as an adult, not so much. My kids are starting to get into them, and like my youngest is really into Goosebumps right now and woke up from a nightmare the other night from one of the Goosebumps books.
Oh no!
And I was just like, oh no, we've hit that stage.
Oh no! Tamika says, because of Halloween, I'm inspired to write horror, but I can only see myself writing a parody because I don't like to be in that mental state for too long. That would be fun.
And there's also flash horror. I wrote like a 1,400 word story last week. It's a thing.
He does talk in here about writing. He gives advice on writing horror in terms of outlines, and he talked about writing short story versus like writing a novel and the kind of beats you need to hit, which that was cool because I have been indulging in writing short stories on Medium. So it was nice to see like a breakdown, because I think that breakdown I could apply it to other genres.
Right.
I loved his take on the hero's journey as far as like how it applies to horror, because a lot of times with a lot of horror, there is no hero exactly. And it was just like, he talked about it, and now of course I've lost it again. There it is. The horror hero's journey. He described it as I can't say it on your channel.
Just say it.
The poor bastard.
The
poor bastard's journey. And he talked about the poor bastard escapes hell, conquers hell, is eternally damned, escapes with severe wounds and scars. And I just thought it was interesting. There was different types of journeys, but it can all still kind of sort of not exactly relate to the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And since the hero's journey is so big with other genres, especially with fantasy and sci-fi, it was really interesting to see it kind of spun on its head with horror in a different take.
That's cool though. And I think that it's a good example of how these bits of writing advice, you can apply it to wherever. It just you figuring out how you can change it and bend it and suit your purposes.
Right.
So we're just about at the top of the hour, y'all. Michael, hello. We're about to wrap up, but I'm so glad that you came. It's wonderful to see you. So why don't we go ahead and give our last thoughts, and then let people know where they can find us.
Real
Did
quick,
you have?
Cynthia mentioned that they did not take classes. The work schedule wouldn't allow it, but they did meet him at an author's meetup. That's is it pronounced like the Holiday Samhain Publishing, or is it pronounced Samhain? Because now I don't know. Had it Horror Hound, but so they met Tim Wagner, but they didn't have take classes with Tim Wagner.
Cool. So, what were your last thoughts?
Mine. Yep. Overall, I found the book really interesting, especially like coming from perspective where I did not at the beginning really think I was interested in horror. I didn't think horror was my jam, and it turns out it actually is.
Self-discovery.
I discovered things about myself I didn't know before.
Love it. And where can people find you?
I have a YouTube channel where I post weekly vlogs and every once in a while weekly videos as well. And starting in November, I'll be doing nano streams on Monday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, if I remember right. I'll have to double check.
Correct. That is correct.
Awesome. So yeah, that's me. Hi.
Hello. And Miss Sarah.
I'm gonna probably thumb through this again and do some of the exercises. I really like writing exercises. I know not everybody does, but I do. I enjoy them. And I'll probably reread some sections as I feel the desire. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a good read, especially if you're interested in looking at some things different, because you probably will, especially if you're not into horror and you haven't read horror writing books. Anyway, I am Sarah Scharnover, and I stream on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central on my YouTube channel, and I stream on Thursday nights at between 7 and 8 Central on my Twitch channel, and sometimes I make videos, and I also am a co-host of a podcast that sometimes I put episodes out of. It's about Twin Peaks, but I'm super bad at my job, so you don't have one yet, but I'm working on it.
There's a bunch up already, though. You guys should check it out. Twitch Freaks. It's awesome. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
But that's all I got for now.
My name is Tamara Woods, and I think that this was definitely one of our better writing craft books. I felt like even though I do not write primarily in the horror genre, I still felt like I learned things, which is really my barometer. So if you want to check this out, the link is in the description. Again, it's Writing in the Dark by Tim Wagner. And this, my friends, is the last episode of Writer's Workshop for the year. We'll be back in January. But if you'd like to see my mug again, you can come by tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be hosting Project AuthorTube's Halloween extravaganza. So we are going to be in costumes. Probably some of us will be having alcoholic beverages, and we are going to be having fun. I know that we're going to have Carrow's tarot, and I'm sure there's gonna be a bingo and like other stuff that we could do. So I hope that you will come and hang out. We're gonna be doing a lot of BSing, and there will be us bringing in NaNoWriMo for the different time zones. This will be I think it's the third year that we've done this. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you do as well. Also, I stream every Thursday at 1 p.m. on this channel where we do writing sprints. And just so that you're aware, I'm going to be launching some merch sometime in the near future, so keep your eye out for that. And if you like the things that I do, you want to support me, you can join my Patreon, join my cozy community. There's room for you. And once I have 50 patrons, I will be releasing paperbacks. So I'm so excited. Please join. It'll be a great time, good time, fun for all. So thank you. I'm going to break out the trashy potatoes costume once again. You know what? I still have that wig. That shirt was a mistake. There was glitter in places that you couldn't even imagine forever. I'm sure the old landlord is still finding glitter in the apartment. But thank you once again, whether you're here now or you're watching this in the future. Without you, we're just some weirdos screaming into the void. Have a good one. Happy Halloween.